November and men's mental health. Big in conversation right now. I'm Curtis Tyler, and at BFBS, we've been making sure we're having a conversation. This time round, I caught up with Tom, Dom, and Mark to talk about whether or not we feel like we fit in where we are.
I do think, just going off the thought about not fitting in as so much with the military, it's possible they don't want us to. You know, it's possible that when they listen to us, they want to hear something different from all the people around them, and they want to hear a different sort of personality. I think I'd want to hear that. When I listen to the radio, I listen to presenters that, they're relatable, but they're also incredibly different to me. And I think it can be good if you don't fit in because of that, for that reason.
It just goes back to that escape thing that we were mentioning earlier. You know, we can be their escape.
I think it's like a family, isn't it? You know, members of a family are different, and we all have places in it. And if ours is to speak, to listen, to convey stories, to try and lighten things up, but equally to talk about the important things as well, then I think that's where we fit in. I think there's a trust that BFBS has and its presenters. I think we're given that trust as well.
Yeah, it's for me. I've always it sounds really official when you say it out loud, but imposter syndrome for me is definitely a thing. Like, I often am sat in a studio thinking, God, I'm not good enough to do this. Like, I'm not.
I've heard that said about you as well, Curtis, but I'll defend you till the end of the
Can't believe we're actually talking about this now. I'm glad it's come out.
I've rambled, and I just honestly, as somebody that I never had a plan B, you know, I can't think of what I wanted to do other than radio, but I'm still sat here going, is this actually, do I do this? Am I good enough to do this?
It's so interesting you brought up imposter syndrome, because I get that all the time. And you know what, when I first wanted to get into radio, I had no media qualifications, didn't have any A-levels, hadn't gone to university like a lot of people had. I just knew I wanted to do it, and every step I've gone through in radio, you know, whether it was starting at hospital radio, whether it was being in small commercial radio, or whether it was when I started at BFBS, I have had imposter syndrome, and I do find that really weird, and it's something that's quite difficult to kind of manage.
I genuinely think that's why it's great for somebody who wants to have a voice and who has a lot to say, but also likes to have fun and be creative. Radio is the perfect medium for that. When I was at hospital radio many, many years ago, I used to hide from all the jocks because of the egos. And it was like I found myself a little Saturday morning show where there was nobody else in the building, and just learnt my craft that way.
I think it's a natural thing, and that can be from on air, was what I just said. You know, there's a fear of getting found out, isn't there? There's always that. But there's also in social gatherings, and I'll go in and I'll feel like I'm and Dom, you maybe relate to this better than the youngsters on the call. But despite the fact we're we're one of the older ones in the room, I still think I feel like I'm often the youngest and most naive, and they're looking at me as
Immature's the word you're after.
That's it. That was the word I was thinking of with you. Immature. But it's am I going to get found out in this conversation? Why are these people speaking to me on the same level? Because I'm not on their level. You know, and we mix with all ranks right across the service.
Completely.
And it's easy to get. It's relatively easy to get on with them all. I'm just scared of what the next question's going to be. You know?
But I think as well, when you're away, when you're serving abroad, and I did a bit of time in Gibraltar over the summer recently, and that whole officers' mess dining scenario was something before I started was like, I really didn't like. That was the thing I was least looking forward to. And actually, after about a week or so, everything became so much more natural. And it was you found the characters around the table. You were all having banter, and you were accepted. And I think the one thing about being on the radio is actually people are interested in your job. So actually, you shouldn't have imposter syndrome, because actually they want to find out what you do, and it's kind of cool.
Can I ask you a question? Does anyone else do this? When somebody says to you, "I heard you the other day," the first thing that goes through my head was, "I'm sorry." Which part did you hear? And then you start to process the part. Was it the bit where I just said something really stupid?
No, honestly, I always apologise. Complete. You're right. Absolutely.
But I can flip that. I can 100% flip that and tell you that, Dom, you're right. And I think it's not just in the mess. I think in the military community, if you're living in SFA, if you're in the mess, whatever, the military community is great, and everybody has different experiences of their time in service or working alongside our armed forces. But you know what? Like, in the time that I've spent with BFBS and the armed forces, it's been so inclusive. Like, I've always felt like that if there's something going on, somebody goes, "Yeah, Curtis, are you coming along to this?" And I'm like, no. And they're like, "Well, you are now. Let's go." And it's
Yes.
and it is, but it is like that. I think the community, and especially overseas, is really tight knit. Really tight knit.
Probably part of that is just because you're living with that community and you're all actually going through the same basic struggles where you might be missing your family, or you're not maybe used to the food that you're eating, or you don't even find your bed comfortable. You know, those really basic needs and necessities, because you're all having those same difficulties and struggles. I reckon that's how it makes it easier for us to bond with that community.
And it does. It does, because when I was out in Gibraltar, we put my wife and I put our house on the market. We decided we were going to sell in the summer, and we put our house in the market on the 2 weeks before we left. We had the estate agent come around, took all the pictures and everything else like that, and I flew out the day after it went on the market. I was sitting around the table and I get a call from my missus, and answering the phone, just a bit of information for you, Tom. Don't answer the phone when you're sitting around the officers' mess table, because it's just rude and you will get grief forever about it. But it was my missus, so I answered it, and she said, first people came to look at the house and it's been sold. So while I was away in Gibraltar, she sold the house out from under me, literally with the first viewing. And everybody around that table had a story about that levelling. Oh, yeah, I was out for 6 months somewhere and I came back and I couldn't find the house. She hadn't sent me the address. She'd moved. So whatever happens to you in normal life, they will have a story as well, because at the end of the day, they're normal too.